Look at that use of alliteration there. Any copywriters in the room should be proud of me. Look, COVID kerfuffle. Thank you, whoever just snorted laughter at my terrible use of alliteration. What I want to do, I want you to just have a look at how you can use it more effectively. Everybody knows what video is. You know, I don't need to explain how you can use it, put it on social media, hopefully, but it's all about how effective it is. And what you notice, I think, and it's probably the same in every industry that you're in as well. I'm sure, you know, Mark, you see this with some of the print you see and you think, you know, that would have been so easy to be better. What I want you to be, because I think it's, again, part of the ethos of the business community is to, you know, help each other to be better. And that's all I want to do, is just try and help you do this video thing a little bit better. Where we'll start then. Oh, look, it's not working. Hold on. There we go. Okay, so you know, the point of this is that this is a practical session. So I want to do a few things here. I want to start with something that people sometimes don't quite get, which is what video will actually do for you, and also what it won't do, because people do make that mistake with video quite a lot, and quite often that then leads to a lot of further mistakes. My phone just started ringing. Spot the professional. Look at that, I forgot to mute my telephone. So we'll just ignore that. Okay. Also, everybody now embarrassingly knows that my ringtone is the X-Files. So, okay, so what it won't do for you. And then I want to move on to the important thing, which is just a list of 5 things that you shouldn't do, and some tips on how to stop them happening, because some of them happen really easily. And it's you know, it's more about how you control it so that they don't happen than knowing that they are going to happen sometimes. And you'll see what I mean later on. The importance of branding your messages. That's a massive subject, so we're just going to briefly touch on that right now. But when I say that, what I'm really talking about there, I guess, is the importance of the video as part of your brand, and the need for you to message yourself properly. And then a Q&A. You can ask me some questions. What I'll also do as we go through is try and demonstrate this with some stories of absolute horrendous things that I've seen over the years. One of the fun parts of being in and out of education, at the front of the room at education, is you see some brilliant mess ups and brilliant mistakes that are made, some of them hilarious. So I'll talk about those as we go along as well. All right. Very briefly then, here's what video will do for you. We were talking earlier about the use of telephone now, and about communicating by telephone, and how that's become really important again to us all. Now we're all locked in this particular case, as you can see, in my kitchen. And that's absolutely 100% correct. But, you know, video communication may well be the next best thing to face in this COVID kerfuffle, because so much communication is about body language and it's about facial expression that's missing on a telephone call. So, you know, yes, call people, talk to them as well, but also remember that if you want to communicate a single message very effectively, you're cutting out some of the communication if they cannot see you. Yeah, so it's all about what you've got to say and when. The other thing it'll do for you with a minute is, you know, that old phrase about seeing is believing. You're on video, you're still here, aren't you? You know, I'm still working, I'm still on your side, my business is still doing things for you, I'm still here. This is an interesting thing. There is a kind of psychological aspect to video, in that it makes you accessible. It makes you more, even more so than the telephone does, it makes you part of somebody's world in a way. And I was telling a story earlier, so sorry, you know, you've heard this one, but years ago I had a business partner. We had a recording studio that we were building. And it was, but I tell you how long this was good. This is when I first started going to the old Connect meetings at Daventry. And my partner, Darren, used to be in those videos where he's filming, doing bits and pieces. And he arrived to the first ever network meeting he'd been to. And as he walked down the corridor, somebody he'd never met went, "Hi, Darren." And they'd seen him in the videos. And he'd seen him enough in those videos that he felt he was okay to be straight on first name terms. No handshake, no nothing, just, "All right." You know, so video makes you accessible in that way. It makes you pleasant, makes you attractive, and makes you part of somebody's world. One of the things that people sometimes say about that, though, is, well, what if I'm talking to a customer and they don't like me? What if they see me on video and they don't like me? Great. When do you want to find that out? Do you want to find that out right at the beginning? Or when you spent 10 hours worth of time you could have spent elsewhere to find out that somebody doesn't like you enough to work with you? You know, so as long as you do the video right, it kind of acts as a gatekeeper sometimes as well. If you have an extended team, it shows that they're still working. Bring them in. You know, sorry to be a bit of kind of, is it nepotism, maybe it's your wife? But, you know, Christina's been very good with this at Green Umbrella, with having, she's been holding her team meetings live online and having lunch breaks with the team and inviting people to come and have lunch with them and things. Because what she's saying to the world is, you know, the whole team is still working. So I would encourage you, you know, to bring other people in to your, perhaps do, you know, interviews with clients or something as well. You know, bring your world into the video. It shows that you are not just that you are still there, but that the world you work in is still there as well. Obviously, it's going to raise product awareness. I don't want to labor that one. I think we all know, you know, the reason for that. The whole purpose of you, you know, talking to the world in any way is to raise your product or your service levels. But one thing that video does exceptionally well with product is it will raise knowledge of a very specific element of a product. So if you're in a particularly complex area, like say finance or a technology area, video is very good at what we call narrowcast focus. You know, it'll pick up a single aspect and explain it very succinctly. I'll tell you one, for instance, that would work really well as a video. Mark, you know, you do your piece on Where's the Spaceman? Mm-hmm. That would be absolutely superb. You know, that's the kind of thing, because that's a really difficult concept that you explain very well. And that would work just as well as a video presentation as it would as a live presentation.
Yeah.
It's going to raise your brand awareness in the same way. You know, there is an element of branding. Paul's doing it really well at the minute. I'm doing it actually rather badly because I've been forced into, you know, using the kitchen today. Look at Mark, you know, the products are out in the background there. Everybody's using the virtual background. It's great. Get your brand out. Keep your brand going. But I'll come back to that right at the end about brand, because when you're on video, you are your brand ambassador as well. You know, you are the face of your brand, and I think you have to accept that that means that in the world we live in now, the digital world we live in, you actually cannot hide behind your brand. I think you have to accept that you're part of it. Okay, here's what it's not going to do for you, and this is where people make a lot of mistakes with video. And when we go on to the 5 things in a minute, you'll see some of them do actually stem from these series of mistakes that people make. You know, it's not going to make you a film star. Possible exception of Bob, obviously, naturally. And you are unlikely to go viral. You know, sometimes I get people saying, "Oh, can we make something that will go viral?" Well, no, because that's what viral means. You know, an ironic word at the moment, obviously, but you know, when videos get these massive shares, most of the time, nobody knew they were going to happen. You know, so it's not going to do that for you. It's not going to make you famous. What it's not going to do, and this is a massive mistake, is it is not going to tell your customers something if it is a complex issue. You need to break it down. It's excellent at explaining small pieces of complex issues. In fact, that's where it excels. And, you know, Mark, like I was saying about your space presentation, is a great example of that. Mark takes something that is basically underpins 3 years of graphic design, how, you know, positioning and spatial recognition and page and impacts and stuff, and he breaks it down to a you know, a very small presentation, because he breaks it down to one aspect, the space, use of space within it. And video, when you were approaching it to talk to your customers, your clients, your prospects, all that sort of stuff, take that approach. One video, one story. Okay, make that your golden rule. Never do more than one thing, tell one story. Yeah. It's not going to send you to the top of the rankings, any of them. Sorry, it's not. making a couple of videos is not going to put you, you know, boost your SEO so much that you're suddenly top of the first page. People spend thousands and thousands on that. You're not going to beat them. Although there are, and again, I don't really want to go into this now, there are some social media platforms, Facebook for instance, that really do love video, providing it's native. So for instance, if you're going to put a Facebook video up, load it into Facebook, don't paste from YouTube. They don't like it. Google, for instance, will tell you that they do not favor YouTube videos over Vimeo videos, for instance, which is another platform. I have experience that says different, I'm afraid. I think they do. But then again, they do own YouTube. The other thing to remember about YouTube, just as a quick aside, is it's the second largest search engine. And its primary use is entertainment. Its secondary use is for information purposes. It's a secondary reason people search it. So, you know, if you're not on there, if you're in a business that is information-based or a service, and you're not on YouTube, you're not putting videos up, you're missing a search opportunity. And here's the one that bothers people the most, I think. It's not going to make you look silly. It really isn't, unless you allow it to. And that's kind of what this presentation is about. It's about, hopefully, you maybe have the confidence at the end of this, if you haven't now, to go, okay, I now know what's going to make me look daft, so I'm not going to do it. Okay? Right then, pop pickers, let's go into my top 5. Any questions so far? No? I'm taking no's out. Nobody's put a hand up or anything up there. Hold on.
No, there's no hand.
Okay. Just out of interest, can you just see the screen? You can't see me now, can you?
I can see you.
Sorry?
Yeah.
You can see me?
Yeah.
Oh, put trousers on there. Okay. All right, top 5 then. Here we go, pop pickers.
Pop pickers.
Pop pickers. That's for you, Bob. Backgrounds. These are my top 5 things that I find either irritating or quite often comical.
Are you ready, Phil?
Now, some of you may have noticed I particularly set this up. I had a choice of backgrounds today and I could have moved around and made it better. I didn't on purpose because I wanted to have a background that kind of demonstrated part of the problem. Embarrassing things in the background, right? Tell you a story, 2 very quick stories from students over the years. There was a beautiful shot at the end of the film, and it was absolutely, I cannot tell you how lovely this shot was. They got access to this great big church and window in the background, light dappled through. It was a beautiful thing, and the camera panned down to the main character. And over their head, as it came down, was an inscription on the wall that said, "Thou art the son of thy father." Right? And when it panned down, what it actually said over the main character's head was, "Son of the fat." In great big letters, embarrassing backgrounds. There was another one where they interviewed their ex-headmaster, and they did say later that they never liked him. And they stood him under a sign that said "Massive Cocktail Sale." And I'll let you work out where they positioned him.
Yeah.
What are your kids, your partners and your dogs up to right now? In the situation we're in now, for those of you who know, my dog was here being a nuisance, and eventually I had to get Bella, my daughter's come and take him away. But you know, you're in my kitchen, you can see that. It's kind of allowable, unless he decides to drag his backside across the carpet or something. You know, you need to control what's happening about as much as you can do. We had somebody talking in the background earlier. Control that environment as much as you can. Yes, of course, there's more leeway when we're all talking on Zoom and we're all at home. But actually, if you're out, hopefully, eventually, we'll all be out and about again. But if you're out and about making videos, you're out in the public, there's no excuse then for having things in the background, you know, like people wandering around, all that sort of stuff. You should be able to control your background more. Tidy up a bit, hence my background. How easy would it have been for me to move that rice cooker? And for all I know, you're all sitting there going, "Oh, is it a rice cooker? I thought that was a slow cooker." Right? How many of you are wondering what that says? Yeah, it says Penfro, stop that. Somewhere in the house, my dog's just gone, what am I doing? And that says, go away, nasty virus, I'm bored. Okay? I really shouldn't have stood here. All I've given you is a reason not to watch me. Yeah?
Yeah.
Morons. There are more than you think out there. You know those people? People who go in the background while you're making your video, just move away from them. They're not going to stop. You know, they're not going to stop doing it for you. If they were, the idiots wouldn't have done it in the first place. There are more morons than you think who think it's funny to stand just off camera, shouting or swearing or doing whatever to spoil it, as we saw this morning in that business meeting, in the business community meeting this morning. What a moron! What a moron! Thinks it's funny. So that was number 5. In at 4. Oh God, please stop. You ever done that? You're watching a video and you're going, oh, stop now. You're probably doing it right now. Dear Lord, please stop. Right? Know when to stop. I would suggest if you're giving tips, you go with 60 to 120 seconds. It used to be even shorter, but there's a reason for 60. Just as a hint here, I believe it's still the case that Facebook will not rank a video if it's less than a minute. Okay, so 60 seconds. And the reason we used to say shorter, I'm fairly sure, was because of television ads. They were 30 seconds, but they were 30 seconds for a reason. And this is a very important thing to remember when you make videos. You were all here because you were motivated to come and listen to me talk to you about videos. Okay? When an ad comes on television, nobody is motivated to watch it. And in fact, they call it disruption advertising because it disrupts the flow of what you were doing. You wanted to watch EastEnders. EastEnders is on the BBC, I've just realised. You wanted to watch Coronation Street, right? And what happened was somebody jumped up and sold you salt powder. It's disruptive. This isn't disruptive. You chose to come to me. Therefore, I'm getting more attention. I'm getting more, I can maintain that attention easier over a longer period of time. But if it's a tip, if it's a quick tip and a quick hint, keep it under 2 minutes, okay? I would suggest you don't go more than 5 minutes. And the reason for no more than 5 minutes is there's all sorts of things, the attention span that people have. There's the time they've got to give you. 5 minutes is enough to ask of somebody's life, basically. And that's a rough 5 minutes. Don't worry about 5.5 or 4.5, you know, just basically run your video until you've finished. And I've got a little bit more about talking until you've finished in a second. But if you're getting over 5 minutes, you're probably getting too long. So this, okay, so what we're saying here, what it is, if you know what I'm saying about, well, not the 120 minutes maybe, but the 5 minutes. No, on the other slide, that's what I'm talking about here. And you just go, please just tell me something, you know. We all have a way of speaking. In television screenwriting terms in particular, they call it naturalistic rather than natural. Naturally, we all we stop and we, you know, go back and all that sort of stuff. You really need to cut that down as much as you can on video. This is, again, a screenwriting term. We talk about in late, out early, and this is really, really, really an excellent piece of advice. And that 120 seconds and that 5 seconds relate to this. When you're giving somebody information, start telling them as far into that information as you can and let it still make sense. What you don't need is a long preamble that isn't relevant. And when you finish telling them the information, get out. You're done. You're finished. Go. And if you keep to that rule, what you probably will find is that 60 to 100 seconds and that 5 minutes happens naturally. Yeah. So, you know, you don't need, you can assume a certain level of pre-understanding, for instance. And it's a practice thing, and it is something I would encourage you to practice, but get in as late as you can to the story and get out as early as you can from the story. And then shut up. Shut up when you're done. Do you know people, you watch people on the Zoom meetings where it's absolutely totally allowable. Nobody quite knows when to leave. You know, because everybody goes, bye, bye, bye. Okay, yeah, I'll see. Oh, bye, bye. Do I specifically say bye to somebody I know there, or somebody I'm meeting, or do I get end? Have an ending to your video, a full stop. Filmmakers call it car keys time, because everybody in the cinema starts to get their car keys out. And they have this full stop, you know. In at 3, no narrative. I almost had this as number 1, but well, anyway, no narrative, no story. Beginnings, middles, ends. All right, that's how stories work. I'm like, you get videos, sometimes somebody will jump in at the middle and then they'll go back and explain why you're there, and then they'll tell you the thing at the end and go back and explain why they've told you the thing at the end. Instead of every 4-year-old in the country will tell you that stories go, once upon a time, a load of stuff happened. I nearly said shit, but a load of stuff happens, and then they all live happily ever after. It's a beginning, it's a middle, it's an end. Have them, plan them, get them ready. What's my beginning? What's my middle? What's my end? This should go without saying, but I think this is something that I actually put this in last thing, went back and added this. One of the results of the current situation is there's a lot of noise out there, and there's a lot of white noise. A lot of people producing videos, and it's been a trend anyway. It's an irritating tendency to just say anything. Don't do that. You wouldn't do it in any other environment. You know, you wouldn't expect, if you went to Mark and said to Mark, do me a newsletter, you wouldn't expect him to give you a newsletter full of things that nobody needs to read. You'd expect content, you know? So stop and think before you make your video, is this actually going to be useful to somebody? And if it is, who is it going to be useful to? So say something that is entirely useful, and it doesn't have to be new, and it doesn't necessarily have to be something that people haven't already seen, but have a way of making it slightly more useful to them. Yeah, do you see what I'm getting at with this? There's no point in just throwing more white noise into the white noise. Remember that from the last slide? Happens here as well. Nothing will spoil that narrative once you've decided on it, more than stopping to go, oh, and I forgot a bit. Well, you know what I said? Oh, when I was, yeah, you've got to let the story flow. So practice taking the ums and the ahs out of your conversation and all the things that are distractions, and practice that flow. You know, stand in front of the video camera, record yourself and go, play it back. Was there a beginning? Was there a middle? Was there an end? Did it flow right? At any point, did you get in the way of your own story? And in terms of the content, the narrative content that you're putting in, most of you, 99% of you, are going to be doing factual. When you're doing factual, you go to war. And I'm about to spoil it. Anybody who watches documentaries, sorry, I'm about to spoil them for you a little bit, because I'm about to give you the magic behind the mirrors. Narratives that are factual go to war. And war means warn, advise, and repeat. So you'll see Attenborough will come on and he'll go, today we're going to look at the life of the king penguin. Here's a king penguin. It has a remarkable life, which is, and then he'll tell you its life. And then at the end, he'll go, so the king penguin, a remarkable creature with a remarkable life. He warns you what he's talking about. He advises you, or in some cases gives that advice with a C rather than advises. And then he repeats what he's just done. He recaps. Not only is that a narrative convention that is an expectation, it's also an understanding thing as well. It helps us understand what's been said. So again, you know, this is like your beginnings and your middles and your ends. This is a convention that people expect. If you don't give it to them, you're just messing with how effective your communication is going to be. In at 2, that man there, you'll see him. Anybody see him in the corner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is, but yeah.
Good, isn't he? No, he's not. Just the reason I mentioned Mark's space thing earlier is I wanted to come back to it now, but he has since buggered off. But, you know, Mark will tell you very clearly in print the importance of space, and that is entirely 100% totally true in the use of video as well. Headroom at the top of the screen. The reason I checked earlier, you can all see me right this second, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, headroom. That's an entirely different video, isn't it?
Mm. Better.
Thank you. So, as is that one. You know, you give yourself, what you need to do is you have a bit of headroom here, and you should be able to just imagine you had a hat on. Would my hat go out of shot? If my hat had go out of shot, the headroom's wrong. Okay, so give yourself some room, a little bit of space at the top. And the reason for that is, even if you're sitting down, we tend to bob up and down. And if your head's constantly disappearing out the screen, you're just unsettling the viewer, because they don't, what you want to do is, wherever possible, is have your video reflect how it would be if they were looking at you in person. And you don't disappear out of people's visions because they move their head to compensate for it, but they can't if it's on screen. Rule of thirds. I can't see everybody, but I'm guessing anybody who's ever done any photography or is a photographer is now nodding totally about using the rule of thirds. It's a natural balance we all use to see the world, and we kind of, for some reason, psychologically divide the world up into thirds. If you want proof, say to somebody, look at that on the distance, and the first thing they do is they go like that to frame it right so they can look at it. We love the world to be framed for us. I'm leaning on here because there's a third going through the center of my body. There's another third going through the center of there. If I move here, move to the middle, which is really hard because I'm very small over there. Yeah, about in the middle, it's still not too bad. I can go to this side, and if the banner wasn't there, it would still be fine. What you can't be is here, because all you've done is left a great big empty space for people to look at. Similarly, the other weird thing is to be kind of somewhere between them. It just feels wrong. The balance is wrong. If you're up close, you're probably better to go to the middle. But again, there's nothing to stop you moving to the sides. And if you get more advanced video production, you notice on things like the news, they will do an interview, they'll set the person they're interviewing slightly to the side, slightly offset. And that's to give the viewer the impression that they're watching them naturally. Yeah, it's one of the things. The other thing about the rule of thirds is it goes up and down as well. So, you know, 1/3 is running through the center of my face and the other through the center of my body. The same applies if we get up close. I can get it to do it nice and straight. Yep, there we go. Somewhere around there. Yeah, it looks more balanced if you can see shoulders. So think about how, and just ask yourself a question. Does that look nice? It's a simple enough question. This guy shouldn't be in the bottom. I'm getting a bit fed up with this guy in the bottom corner, to be honest. I didn't realise quite how mean he looked. Inappropriate hands. Great, there's a couple of stories here. Okay. I've stood up, and I said earlier, again, people who weren't in right at the very beginning of we started, I discovered I can't do this sitting down. I'm terrible. I can't do I need to move, and I need to use my hands to talk. If I use my hands to talk, it's fine. If I drop them underneath, you get a very different impression of what I'm doing. Bob's winding me up now. You get a very different impression of what I'm doing with my hands.
Sorry, Kevin.
That's okay, mate. I expect nothing less. So, you know, keep your hands, if you are a hand-using person, keep them where people can see them. The other thing I would suggest, if you're not a hand-using type person, you don't naturally wave your hands around when you're talking, get into the habit of using them a little bit. It adds a bit of dynamism to your presentation, to your discussion, if they can see you moving. So, you know, movement is fine, but inappropriate hands are not. And another way of inappropriate hands is this. There are 3 dimensions. Okay, there's up and down, there's side to side. What we forget sometimes with video, and what people forget, and this is so important, I feel that I spend, you know, a whole session on this particular one subject, is that there is a Z-axis. And the Z-axis goes that way. Okay. Video, everybody thinks of it in 2 dimensions. It's not. It has the illusion of 3 dimensions. So another way of inappropriate hands is having them held out in front of you so they get massive. Look how big my hands are. But can we mute Bob? He's doing it.
Sorry, David.
You get great big hands. Watch that. The other one is people getting a little bit too close to the camera when they're talking, and that one happens a lot. The too close to the camera thing and the inappropriate framing happens a lot. Everybody who's heard me rant about it. One of my pet hatreds is people making videos from their car, putting it on the dashboard and making a video. It was cute to start with. It's fun. It adds something we'll come on to later, which is authenticity. We'll get there very soon. But we can see it in your nose, and nobody wants to look at your nasal hair for 10 minutes while you tell me something I already knew. There was one I saw, funny ones, one I saw recently, and the guy came on and he said, I'm here on customer site and it's been a great morning, and I'm just having my lunch. And I thought, you're in your car. So what you're saying is you've had a great morning with your clients, but they didn't want to have lunch with you, and he just went, oh, bless. Like he got out to his car with nothing to do and made a video, Just think of what you're doing. Nobody wants to see that stuff. So Z-axis, remember, if you get closer, things get bigger. Yeah? Depending on what sort of film you're making, I suppose that could be useful, but not in most cases. Do you want to hear what number one is? You ready for number one? Number one, terrible sound quality. Wow. I honestly, so many people just switch off. They will just switch off if they. When I say terrible, and I'm by the word terrible, I'm saying to the point where it's unusable. I cannot understand why anybody continues when the sound is completely unusable. To the point where this morning, the real reason I backed out and asked Paul to do the meeting was I've been having problems with sound. And it's just not fair to anybody who's trying to watch you to make them. And we can joke about it and go, well, it makes everybody concentrate. It doesn't, it just annoys them. Yeah. So too loud and distorted is a really common one. People too close to the microphone, it just makes a loud, distorted noise. Background noise, sometimes. This is a weird one. Background noise, a lack of background noise, sorry, can be just as strange as the wrong background noise or too much of it. Okay? To the point where if I do a corporate video and we're in somebody's office, because we want the nice clear vocal, we'll use a clip mic or we'll use a boom and go overhead, and that cuts out nearly all of the background noise. So I artificially put an office on, because if it's not there, the environment doesn't feel right to the viewer. So what I'm talking about here is background noise. People who do their videos in their cars, and this one is genuinely true, next to a lorry park. So that halfway through the video, a great big Arctic lorry pulls up behind, right? And the guy starts swearing out the windows at his mates. Oh, Jim, all right, mate, how are you? That's terrible background noise. That's not the right stuff. It's not what you want at all. So have a listen. 10 seconds, sit and listen. Sometimes you can't do anything about it. I've got to talk to you from where I am. My fridge is humming in the background. There's not a lot I can do. Sometimes it is what it is. But yeah, just think about what the background noise is. You're too quiet to hear. If there is a noise there, you can hear people talking. You can mainly hear people talking. For most of it, you can't really, because it's very, very quiet in places. Even steady audio, if it starts to go up and down, or you recorded it too quietly in the first place, people will not listen. It's just that they're turning their heads away to hear you, because that's what we do naturally as a human being. They're not even looking at your video anymore. Clicks, bangs and buzzies. Okay, sometimes there's nothing you can do about them. Other times there's quite a lot you can do about them. Sorry, I just realised I've knocked off the chat, so I can't see if anybody's asking questions. Well, a very rude thing to say. Bob, no. I'm using the sound from the computer because I'll tell you for why. I had a problem. The problem I was having with audio was actually turned out to be the microphone socket in the back of the computer, or a microphone's not working properly with it. I've got a new one coming so I can test it, and then if find somewhere getting it to Chris Lambert to solder it back on or whatever if necessary. But no, I'm using the speaker on my Mac. It's the microphone on the Mac.
That seems pretty clear, though, considering you're not that close to you.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Very good.
Yeah, partly the trick of where I'm standing, to be honest, because I've enclosed, what I've done is I've created a projection booth for the sound, so it can't escape. It's got to be forced into the microphone.
Okay, smart ass. Yeah.
I do this for, people say this stuff, I do this for a living, I know.
Okay.
Or I just got a very clever answer to something that I didn't know the answer to.
Either way, I'm convinced.
True story, I did, I thought about it. Okay. Where are we? Okay, so that was the sound thing. Now here are ways of fixing that sound issue. And when I'm saying fixing here, what I mean is if you put these in your head and go, okay, if I'm going to record something, I need to do these in advance. This is how I need to think about it. You don't need to shout, but you do need to be slightly more, to have slightly more amplitude than you normally would. The other thing is that anybody who knows me who will now be aware of this will, as soon as I say it, realise that I'm talking slightly slower than I normally do. I actually speak very quickly, a habit that my daughter has annoyingly picked up, and when we talk together, we're just, each of us, one word away from it just going, ooh, because it'll just become a solid noise. You need to slow down and you need to speak clearly, you need to enunciate. And in actual fact, one of the problems I have presenting is because I do speak very fast naturally, consciously slowing down makes me add a lot more ums and ohs and things into my speech. But you don't need to shout, you need to have clarity, you need to have that voice you use when you do your 45 seconds at a face-to-face meeting. Reach to the room, basically, project, darlings, project. And that will also stop that distortion thing. Okay, you don't need to shout, you just need to be clear. And a lot of the distortion you get is because somebody's pushed the microphone to its limits. Number two, sound quality. I just move somewhere quiet. Quite often, video making is about compromise. It is what it is, sometimes, and you're stuck with it. If you pay attention to the news broadcasts at the minute, they are quite interesting because everybody's got to stay 2 meters away from each other while they're filming them. So external broadcast now, the OB teams, the outside broadcast teams are really struggling because what they would normally do is move in to get a closer shot and also bring the sound into that person. So if you listen now, you hear a lot more background noise than you used to. And it's because boom guys now, they're in heaven. They've been going, look, we've been keeping people at a distance for years with this big pole. Look, it's just validated their lifestyle, But if it's really noisy in the background, get up and move. There's nothing that says you have to stay where you are. Record it, play it back, test it, re-record it until you get it right. Both of those two can be cured by checking it. I'm amazed that people let it out. This isn't a magic window, right? It's all recorded, it's all fake. So nobody's walking down the stairs in the morning and a video suddenly comes on that they're in. You're all prepared and ready to go for this. It amazes me when people send stuff out that could have been very easily fixed by simply moving a couple of yards down the road or something.
Yeah, isn't that partly because Facebook Live doesn't allow you to do that? Because it's all spontaneous and you're there in the moment.
But okay. So, yes, but Facebook Live doesn't start itself.
True.
You started, don't you? So that's what I'm saying. Before you go Facebook Live, go, hang on. Actually, there's a bloke behind here swearing and, and effing and blinding to himself. I'll move over here a bit before I start the Facebook Live. You have the power of the press button. I understand the difficulty. And like I said, sometimes, yeah, okay, sometimes, yes, of course, it is what it is. You are where you are, and that's all there is to it. What I'm surprised by is when people don't take the time to just think about what they're doing before they broadcast. And I'll give you another one that, since you brought up live, Bob, I took it out in the end. I was going to have a thing on here that said don't go live unless you absolutely need to. The trouble with having all this control is once you go live, you lose it. Yeah. Once saw a live broadcast where somebody's team in the background started having arguments with a customer over the phone and ended up swearing at them on the phone. And I just thought, mate, stop the video, stop the video. You know, but he left it running and we heard a whole argument in the background.
Nice.
Keep away from the mic. You know those clicks and buzzes? What causes them quite often is people moving around and moving the mic around and touching it. Leave it alone. Move away from it. It'll still work. Right, final words. So we've got time for a Q&A. Sorry, this went on a little bit longer than I hoped. You know that word authenticity? And I have been kind enough, because I didn't know who would be in here, to block out the rest of that word. You know what it means. Don't be one. Right? Don't be one, and here's why. All video is fake, even the live stuff, Bob, because you choose when to press the button. Yeah?
Yeah.
All of it is fake. Yes, Mark, it is artichoke. Don't be a complete authenticity asshole, right? Don't. The video is all fake. There is no such thing as authentic. It is all planned and it is all controlled. So, practice being you. The authentic you, at some point in its life, sat around in its pants drinking red wine watching EastEnders, right? You want that authenticity on screen?
You said you would mention that, Kevin.
Sorry, Bob. I've still got that video, by the way. You still owe me the money for I delete it. You know, practice being you. Right? And don't, I mean, really, 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 that's in capital letters, be anybody else. I don't care who your favourite presenter is. I don't care who, you know, that you watch Gary Vee all the time and that's who you want to be. You're not that person. Because when you're not you, when you're somebody else, what you get, and I'm sure you've seen these, is somebody who, you know, from Hull or somewhere going, all right, guys, how you doing? It's great, isn't it? Hey, you know, and it just doesn't work. It just isn't you. People know, the people who know you will go, why are they doing that? And the people who don't know you will see right through that false nature straight away. But you have to be a practiced version of you. That's why I'm encouraging to record rewind. Is that me on screen? Am I happy with me? Paul's fidgeting, so I better get on with it. Okay, and control as much as possible as you can of these. If you can control these, you'll get good video. The environment that's around you, yeah? And you know, a great example of that with the sound thing that I did specifically move this around. A, because then you can't see all the empty bottles and stuff in the background, but B, because it helps the sound gather towards the screen. The banner's up. I left this stuff in the background. I could have moved specifically so I could refer to it in the video. Control the environment you are in. Move away from the morons. Get away from the bad sounds. Control your content. Get your narrative right. Yeah, this is basically what we've just talked about. Beginnings, middles, ends. Go to war. Warn, advise, repeat. Present yourself right, practice, get rid of the ums, the ahs, do the stuff that don't be as bad as me. Don't do what Donny Don't does, you know what I mean? Learn your own style and develop your own skill. Bob, you talk to people very well all the time. You'd be great on screen. You know you're good on screen. Mark, you've seen you present. You know, John, you're an incredibly friendly guy. Use that. Use that. And the last thing, okay, this is your brand, by the way. That control, those three things that control how your brand is seen through your videos. Right? That's all you need to worry about with your branding right now. Get your presentation right, get your content right. And one last thing, because this is one of the first things that people say, but you've got a lot of equipment. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The equipment is not as important as appropriate content and stuff. Yeah? Nothing in the equipment, nothing in the fancy thousands of pounds worth is as important as your approach and your way of making that video. Proof of that, I used to do some work for Rockingham. Their biggest watched video for a long time on their social media was a guy painting rubber paint in the pits that somebody grabbed on their phone. That content was so interesting to those motor racing people that it was their biggest selling video, even though it was just somebody, wing noise, all sorts of rubbish going on, going, what are you doing there? Oh, I'm painting the pits because it helps cars get off faster. Oh, what are you using? Oh, it's this special rubberized paint that we use for, yeah, people want content. It's like any other content marketing plan. What they want is good, useful content that works. The technology that you use only transmits that, and as long as it does it to a base level, you've got the basics covered. Okay, it's like grammar when you're writing. As long as you're legible, you've covered your writing. I'm glad Stephen Church isn't here right now because he'd be shouting at me. But you know, same thing with writing. People get all hung up about it, on the grammar's not great or whatever. Yeah, well, convey your message first and worry about that afterwards. Right now, let's get the message out we want to get out. So equipment isn't as important as approach. Get your video basics right, and it will tell you when you need equipment, because you'll go, do you know what, I could get the sound better if I've got a separate microphone. You know, really, this camera needs to be slightly up, so I'll get a little tripod, and you'll feel it start to happen naturally. But right now, cut through the white noise with good content and well-presented videos. And that, I believe, is it.
Thank you, Kevin.
No worries.
Okay, have we got any questions for Kevin? If you can either, well, small group, you can probably just sort of shout out, I guess.
Yeah, I do. We're looking, well, we are doing a lot of videos with food. So
Yeah.
what are your food video tips, please?
Okay, food is a difficult one. Are you going to focus on the food, or are you focusing on the people presenting the food?
We're doing both. So we're trying to do like just headshots and then go into the food rather than have both in the shot.
Okay. Rule number one when you're serving food is, unfortunately, cooked food looks bad.
Yeah, you have it slightly raw.
Yeah. So if you, for instance, you know, if you make a casserole, I do most of the cooking in our house because, you know, Christina's terrible.
Good job, this is not recorded, isn't it?
It's a good job. Is this recorded?
Yeah.
It's also on Facebook Live.
Oh, dead. Oh, she's watching, isn't she?
Oh, yes.
Christina's a great cook, but she's very busy. So but you know, if you cook a casserole, when you take it out, it's got the fat rises to the top and it goes all glistening. It really doesn't look very nice. It looks like a slop. If you cook a steak ready for, you know, for consumption, it actually doesn't look very nice. The few seconds after something hits the pan, though, it looks great. You know, when you see steaks in photographs, Phil, I'm sure you'll agree with this. We take a photograph of a steak or something. You want it just as it hits the grill, don't you? Because it mottles and starts to look great. Same applies to video.
Absolutely.
So, you know, and there are various tricks you can do. And Shannon, I'm happy to do this probably offline a little bit if you want to. We'll have a one-to-one, and I'll talk to you in more.
Yeah, yes, please.
More than happy to do that. Give me
you.
contact and we'll arrange it. But there are little tips you can do, like, you know, the steam that you see off food is usually artificial and things like that. We have to create them, don't we, Phil? We're professional liars, aren't we, Phil? Really?
I've got acrylic ice cubes.
Yeah.
Which,
absolutely.
yeah. So absolutely. And a lot of food gets sprayed with hairspray and other stuff just to make it look right. So yeah.
You wouldn't normally eat food with water dripping down the side of it, but it's amazing how often you see that.
Yeah. Shannon, some of your cold stuff will photograph really well, like your vol au vents and the crudités and stuff. That stuff will photograph really nicely. But if you're doing sandwiches or rolls or stuff like that, make sure they're fresh when you photograph them or when you video them. And what I might recommend there is pre-video them and drop the videos in if you've got any sort of editing suite. That way you can make sure that you're getting the right shot of what you want from the right angles and things like that, rather than sort of fiddling the camera around and things.
Brilliant. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's loads more. Like I said, give me a call. I'm sure Phil's quite happy to give you some tips as well and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's an awkward one. It's an awkward one. Anyone?
Yeah, because a lot of that stuff is, like you say, is faked, isn't it? They do, or doctored quite a lot. So you know, I know from a photographer I used to work with, you know, water never looks like water in photography, so you tend to use glycerin, I think. And then in food photography, if they're using milk, it's never milk, it's PVA. And you know, all the takeaway companies have, and I seem to remember there was a video I saw of somebody doing a lasagna which has got plywood in it, just to keep everything at the same height. So nothing ever looks right if it's actually genuine.
I use that takeaway as well.
Jill, I think you've got your hand up.
Yeah, it's not really a question. It's more of a comment. I was sent a video this morning. So I'm a wellbeing consultant, but I'm a speaker coach. So somebody sent me a video by a guy called Rob Moore this morning, which I can post in this group actually.
Yes, please.
Sorry?
Yeah, please do post it.
He was talking about the fact that he is one of Facebook's 20 stars. I don't know if you know about this, Kevin or anybody else. Yeah. So they're trialing this star rating, and he is one of the 20 stars. And he was talking specifically about Facebook Lives and how a lot of their staff are being pulled out of the other areas of Facebook because of what's going on, and people are working from home. Yeah. And they're really focusing on Facebook Lives. So he's got some really interesting tips. And like you were saying, you know, a lot of people go into lives and they spend 3 seconds. So if you're not being engaging, then people are not going to stay with you, and therefore you're not going to get those hits, and you're not going to get your things shown. So I'm quite happy to post that in. He's got a webinar that you can go on to do. He's got a private group, obviously, but even just the 3 tips that he mentioned was really quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything like that. Yeah, great. Can I just pick up on something you said there, though? It's an interesting point. There's been a thing recently, in fact, there was one this morning as well in the meeting this morning about stats and about who's using what and how long. Listen, one of the things that people regularly say is they come back and go, oh, but, you know, we lost 60% of the viewers in the first 3 seconds. That's because they scrolled past it.
Yeah.
You know, and even on YouTube where it monitors, they go, oh, you know, we're losing nearly half the audience, 20% of the way in. Well, good, because what did you want them to do? Sit there and be bored by your brand for the rest of it when they weren't interested? You know? So take stats with a bit of a pinch of salt sometimes on these things. And I guess to some extent, you know, when the Facebook do these things, the 20 greatest, and YouTube have they promote these channels and all that sort of stuff, that's really good. But to be honest, how applicable is that to you and your customers is what you should be taking away from that. You know, what can I learn from, like you're saying there, you know, what's the 3 tips that are useful to me out of this? Maybe slightly less than perhaps the focusing in on the stats. So I'm saying is don't get too hung up on the stats, focusing on whether you're getting the results you want out of them a little bit. Yeah.
Thanks very much. It's been brilliant. I'm going to do a Facebook Live.
I do.
Because I've got it pegged for 12 o'clock. So goodbye, everybody. Sorry.
We're all with you.
Bye.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
For Kevin?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin, do you do a lot of editing? I mean, for some of the stuff that I do, I'm going to have props and things that I'm going to need to use, like my skeleton and stuff. In terms of really simple editing, is there, you know, getting, say for a Facebook video, actually getting the branding up front and a little bit in. Is there an easy way to do it, or is it?
Yeah, it's just 2 ways, Bob. It's very simple. Either training, you know, and take the time to do the learning curve. Now's a hell of a good time to get, if you've got a learning curve, now's a good time to get on that curve. Or get somebody to do it for you. I'll do it for you, whatever, you know. Depending, and a cost on that will go from me or from anybody else. I think probably from a pint to a few quid, depending on what needs doing, you know. When you buy video production these days, or any creative arts these days, or anything to put in, what you're actually buying really is the expertise. Yeah. You know, we've all got access to YouTube. We've all got access to free training. We can all get the basics of anything we want to do. You know, we could probably all learn the basics of astrophysics in an hour or so. We don't make us astrophysicists. You know, it just gives us the basic understanding. So I think there's 2 answers to your question. One is yes. Yes, I'll do it for you. Send it over. You know, whatever you need doing. And so will any other video maker, particularly now since we're not allowed out of the house, which we're generally not very good to be around anyway. To be honest, people like us going out the house. But or I'm happy to give you again one-on-one. We can have a chat about it, and we'll screen share, and I'll show you how to do it yourself.
Okay.
And after that, make the decision: how much do you want to? How much is it worth paying a professional, and how much do you want to do the learning curve? Is the underlying question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, sort of like you were saying, sort of simple 1-2 minute videos with a little bit of advice in them. So it probably doesn't need a lot, but yeah.
Video versions of the stuff you've been doing on like LinkedIn at the minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, they're spot on. Absolutely spot on content for you.
Okay.
And I would say do it. It keeps you in the public eye. You're very good. You're very friendly. Your business runs on it being Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody knows Bob above Solus Healthcare because you are the face of your business.
Yeah.
So get yourself on screen. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Okay, any more for any more? Tick, 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 tick. No, I think your work is done here, Kevin. Very comprehensive. I think you covered all bases. So thank you very much. Thanks everybody for your time. Hopefully see you online at some point in the not too distant future.